Welcome to the Nathan Nephew Show. I am Nathan Nephew, your host here for the next 25 minutes or so. I want to before I start. First I want to mention that it is Saturday, December 14th. Yesterday was Friday the 13th, which is one of my favorites. But it's the anniversary of the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut, and I just want to say, first of all, that of course we don't forget the people that were affected by that tragedy. Absolutely horrible situation that went down there. You don't want that to happen anywhere, especially in a place with so many children. It's just terrible. And thinking about it and thinking about what Adam Lanza did that day and how anybody could possibly. Nobody in their right mind would do something like that, whether they owned a gun legally or not. So obviously it was a mental issue, and we've went over this. We don't need to rehash the whole scenario, but what I do want to mention is our president, Barack Hussein Obama, in his weekly address to the nation, which nobody ever watches as far as I know, but I did watch this one because it was around the Newtown anniversary, and you know that he's going to mention it because gun control is one of his pet projects. One of the things that he would love to see increased is control on law-abiding citizens who own firearms, mostly because they're in his way. That's why governments want to take guns, is because those people who own guns can and do stand in the way of tyranny, of complete government control, of stripping freedom away from the people. The people that have guns, whether they have to do anything or not, are a barrier between the government and the people's freedom. And that is what the Second Amendment's about. And when I get to it, like I promised last time, I am going to go through the amendments of the Constitution. We'll start in the Bill of Rights. I'll do the preamble and possibly the First Amendment today. But the Second Amendment, as you all know, it's not like it's a secret, and this is a spoiler alert. The Second Amendment deals with gun control, and it deals with gun control very clearly. It says, nope, can't control guns. Sorry. And actually it says arms. It doesn't say guns. So, I would extend that to knives and baseball bats. Really, yeah, whatever. But that's a whole nother discussion. I'm sure we'll get there eventually. But what the president did in his weekly address today was to talk about how we need to change. We haven't done enough because we want to save children, which who disagrees with that? Of course we want our children to be safe. But I'll tell you, Mr. President, you and I have very, very different ideas of what it will take to keep our children safe, not only in school, but everywhere else in the world. Very different ideas. And what he's talking about when he's saying we have to do more, we have to love. Okay, he throws that in there like, if you own a gun, and if you want people to own guns, and if you want staff to be armed, and if you want any law-abiding citizen to be able to own a gun, you must not love children. But he's saying we have to change. We have to do more. As a nation, we have to change. You remember that fundamental transformation garbage that he threw out? Was it right before or right after he was inaugurated? But it was right around then, around election time, inauguration, within that couple of months. The first time saying, one of my goals is to fundamentally transform this nation, which means I don't like all this freedom stuff that's going on in this Constitution, this paper that I supposedly taught about in college, this paper that I completely despise. I want to rip it up and throw it away. I want to fundamentally transform everything about this country. The founding was unjust. It was a bunch of rich people that were just taking advantage of everybody else. And I want to change that. And that was essentially his message. And that was his message in his weekly address, was that we have to change. And when he says we have to change, when he says we have to do more, when he says we haven't done enough to keep our children safe, that we need to make it harder for mentally ill people to get firearms, which, I mean, there's some merit there to a point. To a point, there's some merit there. I'm not endorsing anything, but I'm just saying we can have a discussion if you want. But what he is saying, he's not saying that we need to make sure that violent felons who should be in prison, if they're still living, if we can't trust them with a firearm, that we need to make it harder for them to get guns. What he really means is that we need to make Americans in general, we need to make it harder for everybody to get guns, because that's the only way to keep our children safe. The only way to keep our children safe is to keep you and your brother and your neighbor and their neighbor and your cousin in Texas. You need to keep them away from guns and not allow them to own firearms for whatever purpose they want. Because if they have guns, then your children... Well, it's the same argument that Brian, co-host on At Odds, I think he told a story. He may have told it on this show, I don't remember, but I think he told it on At Odds about the anti-gun liberals that he encountered that just... They wouldn't let go of the fact that he must want to shoot them in the kidneys because he had a gun. He was a gun owner. And in fact, they didn't know he had a gun at all, which is what's kind of ironic about this. He just was talking about guns, so they assumed he was carrying a gun. Whether he was or not, that's up to him. He apparently wasn't open carrying at the time, which is interesting. But they're just, you have a gun, you want to shoot me. Oh, that's the only explanation. That's the only possibility, is that you want to shoot me because you have a gun. Well, no, that's not quite true. Sometimes we have guns and we actually don't want to shoot anybody. I'll tell you, most of the time. And in fact, I can't think of one single time that I had a gun on me and actually wanted to shoot somebody. I know for a fact that has never happened. I've never wanted to shoot somebody. Am I willing to, if I need to protect myself or to protect my family? Absolutely. Without question. But I don't want to. Contrary to popular belief on the left, I don't even want people to break into my house so I can shoot them. I mean, it's even worse than I don't want to just shoot the guy at the cafe sitting there that's a liberal. I don't want even to get attacked or to have someone break into my house so I'm justified in shooting them. I just don't want to do it. So when the president talks that we need to change and we need to do more and it won't come from Washington, it'll come from you, what he's saying is, hey, moms demand action. Keep up the fight. Keep up your 50 moms strong protests that you have. Keep it up. Which, by the way, at a Moms Demand Action rally is one of the few times that I've ever actually just been screamed at by somebody. So when you want to talk about where the violence and the hatred comes from, it's from these groups on the left, the anti-gun groups, the anti-violence groups. They're the ones that I see when I'm out, because I do go to these things. When I see the hatred, when I see the anger, it's always, and I mean always, I have not seen one case of somebody on our side, a gun owner, that really got upset at all, to the point of anger or yelling or violence or anything like that. It always comes from the other side, and I've personally been just yelled at in my face, screaming at me about some ridiculous thing about George Bush and Iraq, which had nothing to do with why anybody was there. But that's just what it comes down to. You have a gun, you must be a Republican, you must love George Bush. George Bush is a murderer, you must be a murderer. I hate everybody. I mean, that's the explanation. It's completely absurd. Completely absurd. So it's not surprising to me that our president used his platform, his weekly address that nobody listens to inform the American people that we need to change, fundamentally change the way our country operates. That Second Amendment isn't fair. It's not fair, because without the Second Amendment, Adam Lanza would not have stolen a gun, illegally transported it, and illegally used it to murder. The Second Amendment was his permit for murder. And that's how the left looks at it. I'm going to take a quick break. It's a bit early, but I'm going to take a break. When I get back, I'm going to jump into the preamble of the Bill of Rights and probably the First Amendment. I don't think I'll get to the Second Amendment, but hey, that's a good one, so we'll save that for next time. NathanNephew.com. Look me up on Facebook. Also, check out my book, myparentsopencarry.com. I wrote it with At Odds co-host Brian Jeffs. So, myparentsopencarry.com, a great Christmas present, a great conversation starter to talk about guns, talk about the Second Amendment, talk about the right and responsibility to defend yourself and your family, and why carry a gun, and gun safety, and just in general. It's a great conversation starter. And if you don't have kids or grandkids or whatever, and you want to donate it to a school, library, or to a public library, we've had that with success in some cases. So, a great idea. myparentsopencarry.com.
When it comes to TV, if you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best value in entertainment. Not only will you find the same channels you know and love for less, Dish sweetens the deal with free HD for life and premium movie channels free for 3 months, including Blockbuster at Home. You can also save a bundle when you combine DishNet high-speed internet with your TV service. Why would you ever pay more for TV? Switch to Dish and see what real value is. Free HD for life, premium channels free for 3 months, scores of movies with Blockbuster at Home, premium savings when you bundle DishNet high-speed internet service. Limited time offer, 24-month agreement with credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. Call for details.
Call Dish Satellite, your Dish authorized retailer now. 800-507-9468. 800-507-9468. 800-507-9468. That's 800-507-9468.
Did you ever use your smartphone in the cold weather and wish you could do it with gloves on? Did you ever exercise outdoor and wish you can listen to your iTunes music with crystal clear sound without string attached? Did you ever get frustrated that your smartphone ran out of battery while you were talking? With the latest gadget from Mobile Factory Outlet, you can resolve all of the problems and do much more. Visit www.mobilefactoryoutlet.com and check out the latest touchscreen glove, Bluetooth headphone, backpack wireless charger, and many other cool mobile accessories at unbeatable price. Visit us at www.mobilefactoryoutlet.com.
Red State Talk Radio is All American Talk Radio.
The Nathan Nephew Show. Somewhat unique.
Somewhat unique?
Yes, somewhat unique.
Well, welcome back to the Nathan Nephew Show. As you know, I am Nathan Nephew. So I anytime I hear this president talking about fundamentally transforming this nation, or that we need to change, or that something we're currently doing is wrong, it's infuriating. I can't handle it. I can't, and I don't know how in the hell this communist got elected twice. The first time I understand, I get it, whatever, okay. The second time, after 4 years of what he was doing the first time, man. And he wasn't even really hiding what he wanted. He said, we can pull up quotes of him saying he wanted to fundamentally transform this nation. We can pull up quotes of saying that you need to redistribute wealth to have any sort of fair society or whatever. He's not quiet about it. It's just the media is so silent on all of this stuff. The stuff that if George Bush had said, do you think if George Bush or any Republican had said, we need to transform this country, we need to fundamentally transform this nation and the way it works, you think that wouldn't have been on the front page of every newspaper publication, every magazine? Do you think they would have been the Time Person of the Year or won a Nobel Peace Prize before they even started doing anything at all? Do you think MSNBC maybe would have mentioned that? Or NBC or ABC or CBS or CNN or any of them that have been silent on the complete dismantling of what this country is about. Do you remember the "you didn't build that" comment that everyone said, oh, it was just a flub up? No, he means that sort of thing. He means it. He talks about redistribution. He talks about roads and bridges. Who's going to build the roads? If the government doesn't build the roads, you can't do it yourself. You can't build your business because you rely on government. The only reason that a majority of people rely on government is because they're forced to rely on government, because the government has made it so hard to make it on your own. How many full-time jobs have been created? Not too many. Lots of part-time jobs have been created because full-time jobs are being split into multiple part-time jobs. That's not good for the economy. Maybe more people are going to work every day, but all of those people are making less, which means they can spend less in the economy, which is, well, that's really how you stimulate an economy, is to give people money legitimately, not by printing it and mailing it to them from the IRS or from whoever. It's by allowing them to earn it and purchase goods with it, who allows that person to go ahead and purchase goods, which employs somebody else. It's ridiculous. All right, I'm going to get into the Constitution here, preamble of the Bill of Rights. We finished the meat of the Constitution as ratified, and we are on to the amendments. Preamble to the Bill of Rights. Congress of the United States, begun and held at the city of New York on Wednesday the 4th of March, 1789. The conventions of a number of the states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution expressed a desire, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its power, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added, and as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. Now that's interesting, because that's something that I've heard Rush Limbaugh specifically talk about how the left hates the Constitution because he calls it a set of negative rights, I think is what he calls it. But essentially what it is it is restrictions on government. And that's why they hate it, because it's a list of things that the government cannot do. Or at least the Bill of Rights, which is really what's attacked. I mean, they generally ignore. So this is what I've seen with the Constitution on both sides, is that people forget. They pretty much just forget about the first 7 articles because, really no one knows what they say, and they're kind of long and hard to read. That's not true, but so everyone just bases it on what is in the Bill of Rights. The amendments that everybody knows about, that you learn about in school. That turns into the main part of the Constitution, and that's not really the case. Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America, in Congress assembled, 2/3 of both houses concurring, that the following articles be proposed to the legislatures of the several states as amendments to the Constitution of the United States, all or any of which articles, when ratified by 3/4 of the said legislatures, to be valid to all intents and purposes as part of said Constitution. Articles in addition to an amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America proposed by Congress and ratified by the legislatures of the several states pursuant to the 5th article of the original Constitution, which says this is how you amend the Constitution. So here we have some amendments. Let's move on. Article 8, which is the First Amendment, to the Constitution, and the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights. And we all know what this one says. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. So, this is, and I talked about this a bit before when we talked about the religious test, this is specifically talking to Congress. The first word is Congress. Congress shall make no law establishing religion. It is not, much like the religious test argument, it is not the absolute separation of church and state. It is saying Congress shall make no law establishing a religion. So Congress cannot establish a national religion, cannot say, this is America, we are all blank. It doesn't say, though, and this is the important part to remember, and when you see the freedom from religion groups and all of these other people running around acting like they know what the Constitution says, it does not say that government and religion have to be completely separate. It does not say, it says government cannot establish a religion. It does not say that religion cannot be intertwined with government. It does not say that our money cannot say, "In God we trust" on it. It does not say that a federal building can't have a monument of the Ten Commandments out front. Or whatever else. What did we see? Was it Oklahoma, the satanic message? It doesn't say that that cannot happen. It says Congress cannot make a law establishing a religion. So, essentially, Congress can't tell people when to worship, where to worship, how to worship, if to worship. And then for Congress to ask people in the government, legislatures, anybody in government, representatives, officers, whoever, to withhold. So, and I don't know why I'm having trouble saying this because it's a very simple concept. I'm sorry. Congress can also not make a law, and it is not against the Constitution for somebody in Congress or whoever to express their religious beliefs and even to include it in legislation. If that were the case, that would violate Article 6, which is the no religious test clause or article that I was talking about. So it goes both ways. Not only can you not have a religious test that tests whether somebody is of a particular religion, you cannot exclude religions either, as far as telling somebody who's making law, writing law, speaking, whatever, the president included, you can't force them to not talk about their religion or lack of religion. That's protected by Article 6. And then the First Amendment says that Congress cannot establish a law or cannot make a law that establishes a religion. And it goes on to talk about the exercise of free speech and freedom of press, which means Congress cannot make a law that restricts what you say, how you say it, where you say it, anything like that, including, yes, and this is going to be a shock to those anti-gun people, including yelling fire in a theater. Because, in fact, the First Amendment does protect you yelling fire in a theater. Now, if people panic and there's a stampede, then you can be responsible for that damage, I would think. But unlike the Second Amendment, where we say, you're going to shoot somebody, or you may shoot somebody if you own a gun, so we had better take your gun away. With the First Amendment, we say you shouldn't yell fire in a theater, but we don't put a muzzle on you. So why do we treat these two things differently? Especially if we think they're both dangerous. And in fact, I think speech can be much more dangerous than a gun. And lastly, the First Amendment says that Congress cannot make a law that restricts the peaceful assembly in order to essentially complain against the government. It cannot restrict where you assemble, when you assemble. Things like how far of a distance you need to keep away from certain individuals, like the president. Congress, according to the First Amendment here, can't restrict that sort of thing. Now, what we've done is somehow the president and Secret Service have gotten the power to create boundaries. And in fact, they've created First Amendment zones, free speech zones, where you can go yell from this area, but it's not within hearing distance of the president. Well, no, not really. I don't think that's what this meant. But it does specifically say Congress can't make these laws. So now maybe Congress should, I don't know, enforce their power, because we do have this whole separation of powers, checks and balances thing, where the president is not supposed to make legislation or rules and laws and things that govern the people. That is up to Congress. That is pretty much the First Amendment. It's one that is trampled on a lot more than we see, and then we see people like Dianne Feinstein who want to, let's define what a journalist is, because the freedom of press, maybe all of these people with blogs, all of these conservatives, maybe they shouldn't be able to talk. I just, because I think this only applies to journalists. Well, yeah, no, go to hell. You're wrong. Absolutely wrong. That's about all the time I have, though. That was a quick run-through of that. That's the First Amendment and the preamble. So next time we'll jump on the Second Amendment, maybe the Third Amendment, which everyone forgets about, but it is important. It's fairly short. NathanNephew.com. Look me up on Facebook, please. And myparentsopencarry.com. Check out my book, Great Christmas Gift. And also stay tuned in right here to Red State Talk Radio. See you next week.